We're taking a look at number 5, which is on our extra practice that we handed out hard copy in class, or you can download from the assignment section off of Google Classroom. So we're actually looking at how much of an initial sample exists. So what's the original amount? So we take a closer look at your question. The half-life of thorium is 1.4 times 10 to the 10th years. If there are 25 grams of the sample left after 2.8 times 10 to the 10th years, how many grams were there in the original sample? So go back to stating, what do we know? We know that a half-life is 1.4 times 10 to the 10th years. We know the remaining sample is going to have 25 grams. And we know the elapsed time is 2.8 times 10 to the 10th years. Now, what is the original sample? Or in our equation, the language we used was, what is the initial amount? So I'm calculating in my head, trying to think through, well, I started with what amount and ended with 25. So what we're going to have to do is go back. The green text box here, or this box, is going to be what we're looking for. I have 0 amount of time that has elapsed for 0 half-lives. So what do I know? I'm going to start by filling in that my elapsed time, each half-life, is 1.4 times 10 to the 10th years. Oh, we'll change that to years. Now I'm going to go down to 2.8. So some of us may not like exponents, but if you take a look, what happens if I say 1.4? So we're just going to disregard the times 10 to the 10th. So 1.4 times 2, or 1.4 plus 1.4, it's going to give me 2.8 times 10 to the 10th. So mentally spacing this on my chart, I know that I'm only going to go one more half-life. That's 1.4 times 10 to the 10th plus 1.4 times 10 to the 10th actually gives me 2.8 times 10 to the 10th, and I'm done. So that means I've gone through 2 half-lives. So what did we end up with? We ended with 25 grams. Now, if you recall in our earlier videos, we went from our initial sample and divided by 2 until we got to the remaining sample. Well, we're working backwards this time. So you can simply multiply by 2 until you get back up to your original sample. So 25 times 2 is 50. 50 times 2 is 100. So let's double check that. If I took my 100 and I halved it, I get 50, and if I half it again, I do 25. Now, some of these numbers, most of you or some of you can do in your head, but when we get larger values, they may change. So if you're looking for the conceptual model, it will always work that you start with your initial amount and divide by 2 all the way down each time, and you multiply by 2 if you're starting with an ending amount and wants to go back to an initial. So there was a request to actually do one more, which is number 6, which is a little bit lengthier. So if you want to check out number 6, check out video number 4.